I want to start with Will, who's calling in from Texas. Will, you're on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hi, Ross and Dan. It's Will. I am a former Catholic in an ongoing dialogue with my sister, who is a current Catholic. And one of the speed bumps we hit in our conversation recently is about signs, dreams, and visions. So she's had some signs and dreams and visions that hit a speed bump in our conversation.
Okay, so in your dialogue with her, she's kind of citing the signs, like the dreams and visions. Is she's personally having as like evidence for her belief? Is that what's going on?
Oh, sorry, you cut out. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So is she citing her own personal visions and dreams as evidence for her belief in God? Is that what's happening?
Yes, it's some of her own visions and dreams that are causing her to.
And are these like premonitory visions? Is she seeing things before they happen, or is she getting like great insight from these?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So, for example, she had a dream or a vision where someone was praying at the foot of her bed, and when she woke up fully conscious, she contacted this person, and they happened to be praying at the same time about her.
Okay,
that's cool.
I was wondering about your experience with that and some advice going forward in that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, Ross, I know you have some experience on this. You care to jump in on this first?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm always really interested in the point in a conversation with a believer where you get to that point where they kind of share for them the linchpins of their beliefs. And usually it is something like that, like amazing coincidences that have happened in their life, or things that have been provided for them, or, visions like these. I think the first thing you can do is just kind of acknowledge, yeah, that's cool. That's really cool that you called her and she was having the same sort of thoughts about you, that she was praying at the same time. You can acknowledge that because that is cool. Now, you might, as you kind of look into the story, if the person seems willing to investigate and sort of explore just the parameters of this story, you might be able to introduce little bits of not even doubt per se, but just kind of shades of nuance and kind of point to, well, maybe she was actually thinking about you the day before, or even just statistically, you can kind of unpack it and tell a similar story that you've had of an amazing coincidence that was a coincidence, but was cool. I know that some friends and I had started a website a while back, and it still kind of lives on as a Facebook page. It's called The Odds Must Be Crazy. And what we did was we collected people's amazing coincidence stories, the times where, you run into your high school friend on a backpacking trip in the Swiss Alps, like what are the chances of that? And we would collect these stories and do a little bit of analysis on them to say, well, what are the chances? How many people do you know in your life? What are, how many dreams do you have per night? How many of those dreams are about people? How often do you think about someone you know? And it doesn't turn out to be that you're, they weren't also thinking of you, or they didn't just die if it was like a death dream or something like that. If you become a little more attuned to those misses as well as the hits, at least you can start to kind of contextualize how these happenstances come together, and then appreciate amazing coincidences when they do happen. But I can understand why that experience was really cool for your sister, and why that would be compelling to her.
Yeah. I'll give my take on this too. I mean, Ross said it, guys. I mean, like everybody has had something happen in their life that they saw in a dream. Like I'm convinced of this because I think everybody has had like that experience. If you ask anybody on the street, I'm sure they can come up with something. So it's not as amazing when you think about when we sleep for every day of the year pretty much, and you dream for so much of that, and then you live so much of your life, you have so many dreams, eventually you're going to find something that a coincidence is going to happen. So in that sort of, looking down from above sense, it's not as impressive, but obviously, like, visions and dreams and stuff have been important for religious culture since like, well, religion's been a thing. I mean, like it's hard to think of a mainstream religion that hasn't cited dreams as like a part of their stories, you know? So and when you do have that coincidence, like it seems kind of powerful in that moment. It seems like, oh man, maybe there is a grand design or plan. But yeah, I think when you look at it statistically, it doesn't work. Of course, when you try to explain that to somebody, especially if it's something that's a personal experience like that, that's a bit more challenging. It's more difficult because it's like you don't want to take that away from somebody. And
it kind of gets connected to those questions of theodicy as well, because there's always implications to any belief. So if you believe that God gives you an impulse to pray for Jane at the same time she's praying for you, or if he helps you find your car keys, there's also a lot of things that he's not doing. And if you think about those, it might make some of those little coincidences seem a little absurd, almost as intended events.
Yeah, like I was thinking about Mark Taylor. Do you remember Mark Taylor? He's the guy who they made that movie about him, the Trump prophecy. He claims that he predicted the presidency of Donald Trump because he had a dream back in like 2012, 2014 or something. And but like if you read his story, like he was watching Donald Trump on TV like before he went to sleep, and so like he probably had a dream of just him as the president. Like you know.
If you even believe that, like you've always got to be highly suspicious of any prophecies that are told after the fact, which could lead us into some fun biblical discussions. But one thing I'll leave you with, Will, is I would say prioritize keeping the conversation alive rather than trying to immediately sort of pin her down and say like, well, look, let's contextualize this. Let's disprove this. No need to do that. Maybe introduce some of those elements, but I think the important thing is to make sure that you keep talking and have the dialogue so that you can sort of plant seeds and have deeper conversations in the future.
Absolutely. And Will, here's my takeaway. I would suggest the outsider test of faith in this circumstance. So like I would ask your sister, well, here's someone of the Muslim faith that had a dream confirming to her that, this is something that was real. Would you accept this as evidence if somebody brought this to you to confirm that it was real, and maybe think about that now.
Yeah, maybe even, I love that idea. Maybe even collect some of those stories like, in India, there's a lot of accounts of people who remember past lives, and they'll use this as evidence for reincarnation. So there's a lot of stories of young people who speak languages that they never learned, or they have very specific memories of dying as a fighter pilot or something like that. If you can find some of those accounts, maybe share them and say, well, are you sold? Does that make you believe in that particular claim?
Yeah.
That's a good tactic.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. But Will, I think that's about all the time we got for this call. I hope we were helpful for you. And thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll definitely carry that forward into the next conversation.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I was thinking because we were talking about those experiences. For some reason, I was thinking about, I can't remember if I heard this on another show or if a Mormon friend told me, or former Mormon friend told me about how they were in another country and they were able to speak the language that they never grew up learning, and that was kind of considered this miracle. But it's like, oh, you're in a foreign country, of course you're going to pick up the language while you're there, like even subconsciously, like just fun stuff like that. But,
and we're storytellers. That's what we do as humans. Those are the things we remember. Those are the things that stick with us. Compelling stories, and they get improved in the retelling. And it's just something to be aware of. And I think one of the key lessons of skepticism, something that you learn, is that you begin to contextualize your own memories a little more and be a little more critical of them. And you kind of see that sort of creep that happens in the retellings of stories from other people. And it's hard to sort of introduce that into a conversation without looking like you're accusing somebody of lying or willfully making things up, when it's really just, it's a human impulse that we sweeten our stories.
Absolutely, for sure. And yeah, every time we remember that memory, it's going to be a little bit different. And unless we write it down, then we might not get the best picture. And even then, writing it down isn't always the best way. There really isn't 100% reliable way to know about these things. And with dreams and stuff too, I'm always skeptical, not even just because there's no way to verify it, because it's not like I can enter your head and see it, but it's like it's a dream, my man. Like I wake up and I'm not even half sure what I just dreamed about most of the time. So but I don't know.
You bring up a really good point, though, and kind of putting on my CFIIG hat for a second. One thing that we always recommend to people when they do get the feeling that they are really good at registering predictions is to put them down somewhere where they do have a date attached to them. So journaling is awesome, but even like sending an email that has a timestamp attached to it, or uploading a YouTube video or a blog post, something like that you can point to later and say, yeah, I actually did call this. And it's not just me sort of retrofitting what I was saying at the time, or selectively choosing the things I got right and ignoring the things I got wrong. The more you can do that, the more you can both kind of verify your own ability, but also convincingly show it to others.
Isn't it interesting how these dreams and prophecies and psychics that talk about this stuff, they'll never give a specific date when anything is going to happen. And when they do give a specific date, it's like always wrong. I don't think it's ever been right. Like, I don't know of any good examples of how it could be.
I mean, that's a joke within the Christian church, I'll even hear this from my dad, who's still very much Christian. The time Jesus is not coming back is whenever Harold Camping says he is, or someone makes that prediction. That's how Jesus is definitely not returning that day.
Right.
But they all feel it's very respectable just to say, yes, Jesus is coming at some point in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to keep it non-falsifiable.
Yeah.
Because then you can never disprove it.
Vague, specific. We're in the end times, maybe kind of right now. It's in our lifetime. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But
the
anyway.
Antichrist is this guy today, but it'll be some other guy tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely.